most days a day, a bad luck's always coming my way.
Good afternoon. Here we have a quiet little motel, tucked away off the main highway, and as you see, perfectly harmless looking, when in fact, it has now become known as the scene of the crime. This motel also has, as an adjunct, an old house, which is, if I may say so, a little more sinister looking, less innocent than the motel itself. And in this house, the most dire, horrible events took place.
For today's Grimm adventure, we find ourselves in Phoenix, Arizona. Currently it's 102 degrees, but it's only going to get hotter because it is the morning. Now, a lot has changed since 1960 when Alfred Hitchcock released the movie Psycho, but we're going to attempt in this video, in glorious black and white, to visit as many filming locations as we possibly can. The opening scenes to Hitchcock's Psycho happened here in Phoenix. In fact, it actually says Phoenix, Arizona. They really did film here. The very first shot we get in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho is an aerial shot, a sweeping shot through downtown Phoenix, Arizona. We found a parking garage that gets us a little higher. I mean, we don't have a helicopter, we can't fly the drone here, but this is it. I mean, a lot's changed. Old buildings are torn down, new buildings are built, but here we are in the heart of Phoenix, Arizona. Now, let it be known, this is our very first time actually being in Phoenix, Arizona. Usually whenever we're here, it's whenever we're flying through and we have a bit of a layover in the airport. So this is kind of neat. I always wanted to visit this one building that's here, just one building. In the grand scheme of the movie Psycho with Norman Bates and everything that happened at the Bates Motel, I mean, it's iconic and nobody really remembers the opening scenes. Now, we're going to get really close to this building in just a moment. And I was trying to get a little higher than we are right now. You see this building right here? The camera, after the aerial shot, zooms into one of the windows on the other side of this building. It's this one right here. You see that little design on the side of the building? You can see that clear as day in the movie. Standing here at the bottom of the building and looking at the building itself and watching the movie, it's pretty easy to pinpoint which window Marianne and Sam were in. And that is this one right there. That's where the camera zooms in, and then we're inside the room. How crazy cool is that to be standing here? This is cinematic history. Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho, cinematic history. This is where it all began.
I better get back to the office. These extended lunch hours give my boss excess acid.
Why don't you call your boss and tell him you're taking the rest of the afternoon off?
Right now, I am in downtown Phoenix, standing at the intersection of Central and Adams. Now, this is a very important piece of filming location for the movie Psycho, if you will. You can kind of make it out. You probably can't see it right now on camera, but the building that Marion and Sam were in is on the other side of this building right here. But it's at this intersection right here where Marion stopped with her car. She's leaving town, and she sees her boss walk across the crosswalk right in front of the car. And you can tell that it's right around Christmas time, because right over here in this area, you can see the street lights right here. They were Christmas lights hanging across the street from that post right there to the post on the other side. Lining up the shot is actually pretty easy. If you look down this street, you can see a radio tower and a lot of old buildings down there. This crosswalk right there, that's where she saw her boss, Marion's boss, walking from the left to the right. And right here in this area where I'm standing is where Marion's car was stopped at that stoplight. Gonna do a little bit of psycho reenacting here. There's Jessica as Marion's boss. Oh, she coming for her money. How cute. Nope, we're not giving her money. Instead, we're going to the Bates Motel to die at the hands of Norman Bates.
It's not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
We realize with our cameras you really can't see the radio tower off in the distance, but that's the radio tower. It's still here. It says Westward Ho at the top of the building. But both at the opening shots, the aerial shots of the camera coming down into Phoenix, Arizona, as well as Marion at the stoplight, you can see that building and that radio tower off in the distance. Technically, this is our second Alfred Hitchcock filming location tour that we've done. The first one, if you haven't seen it already, was up in Bodega Bay in Northern California for The Birds. Now we're doing Psycho. I think after this, we're probably gonna have to do Vertigo. But that's it for Phoenix, Arizona. From here on out, everything else is in the Southern California area. The next stop on our Psycho filming locations tour brings us to Gorman Post Road, just outside of Gorman, California. This is the road where Marion was sleeping on the side of the road in her vehicle when a cop pulls up to check on her. In fact, you see that telephone pole just to the right of the center of the screen there? It's right next to that telephone pole where her car was parked. In the very next scene, right where I am standing is where Marion's car was parked. The police officer's car, the cruiser, was right behind it. It's here where he walks up to the side, the driver's side window, knocks on the door and wakes her up because she was sleeping because she got tired on her way out of town with the money. It all happened right here. Now this is as close as we're going to get to that actual shot, and even though the movie was filmed in 1960, a lot still remains the same. You see those telephone poles on the left-hand side? If you look closely at them at the top, Jessica was pointing out that some of them look original to whenever Hitchcock was here filming. And on the right-hand side, off in the distance, you see that bush or a tree? That wasn't there in the movie. Today, it is. But the hillside, the background, it all matches up. We know Hitchcock filmed those scenes on this road, Gorman Post Road, and as she drives away from the police officer closer to town, you see a couple different landmarks like street signs. So before we head back to LA, I want to take a drive further into town and see if any of those landmarks still exist today. Something always changes. It always does, especially whenever a movie was filmed in 1960. This little section here, at the center of your screen, there's a stop sign and it says Gorman Post Road. The scenes with Marion that Alfred Hitchcock shot is just behind this building, the Ranch House Restaurant, this old abandoned roadside restaurant. It's further down there. Now this next to everything is Interstate 5. Now back in the day, this wasn't Interstate 5. Instead it was Interstate 99. And right here, this little intersection, if I can zoom in just a little bit, you're gonna see a sign right before that bridge. It says Los Angeles that way and Bakersfield this way. You can see it was a different sign because it was 1960, but you can see a sign right there in that same exact spot as Marion turns up this road right here, kind of like this truck is doing. Obviously, I absolutely love visiting these filming locations, especially when so much time has passed. But it always intrigues me how many people actually drive this street, more importantly, Gorman Post Road, and have absolutely no idea that Alfred Hitchcock filmed Psycho here in this little stretch of land in California. That's the kind of stuff that blows my mind. For this next scene, we find ourselves at 4270 Lancashire Boulevard at this BMW dealership. No, we're not here to buy a BMW, but in the movie Psycho, this is where Marion Crane goes to trade in her car, and she has that little talk with California Charlie. A lot has changed since Psycho came out in 1960, but this is it. Pretty much all of the filming happened on this side of the building. In fact, you see those windows right there? Well, in the movie, those were bays and there were used cars parked in there, and Marion Crane would have pulled in right here and parked her car over about the center of your screen. And we know this because this back portion of the building, if you look very closely, you can see over here to the back, that is where the garage doors were, and the door leading into California Charlie's was right there.
Be with you in a second.
Now, I know if you're watching this, you're familiar with the movie, but she comes to this car lot to trade in her car for something that has California plates. And in this scene, she's walking right past these windows, which in the movie, they weren't windows at all. They were used cars. And right here at this corner, if I back up a little bit, you can see the sidewalk behind her. This is where she gets the newspaper that she starts reading when California Charlie comes up to her.
That's the one I'd have picked for you myself.
How much?
Go ahead, spin it around the block.
It looks fine. How much would it be with my car?
You mean you don't want the usual day and a half to think it over? You are in a hurry, aren't you? Somebody chasing you?
In the scene where California Charlie says the famous line, "This is the first time a customer ever high-pressured the salesman," the camera's pointing this way, and you can see those two houses in the background over his shoulder.
Well, it's the first time the customer ever high-pressured the salesman.
And right over there is where the officer would have been watching her from across the street, because she's being suspicious. Right now I'm standing in the alleyway behind the BMW dealership on the other side of the street. Same dealership, just different parts of the street. Now if I were to walk right through this little garage on the other side, you see those cars parked in the center of your screen, the car lot over there? That's the car lot that Hitchcock used for Psycho. Now, right about the center of your screen as well, that is where the police officer would have been parked on the side of the street. This building that I'm looking through, it wasn't here back in 1960. Instead, it was just an open lot. Now, what's really cool about this is in the background of this scene, if you look very carefully, across the parking lot, just past the police officer, you'll see this garage. It's still here, it's been updated, but it's still here. I think in the movie, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 2-car garage. Like there was a split down the middle, and now it's just a single garage. But this is it. Right now I'm standing in the alleyway behind a car dealership because I wanted to point out something that has also changed since 1960. Now in this scene you're going to see the police officer pull into the parking lot, and he parks right towards the back here. And in this scene you can see a white picket fence that's no longer here. Instead it's this single chain link fence, I guess you would call it. Right now I'm standing on Blair Road, which is high above Universal Studios Hollywood. And what you're looking at right now is as close to a bird's eye view of the back lot as possible. You can see the giant blue screen there. They filmed countless movies there. The airplane, the wreckage from War of the Worlds. And if you look very, very closely, you can see one of the tram tours pull up. And right there, that's the Psycho House. Now let's try this from a different angle. If I zoom in a little bit here, you can see it a lot easier. There it is. Of course, anybody with a paying ticket can get inside Universal Studios Hollywood, take the tram tour, and get an up-close and personal look at the Bates Motel and the Psycho House. Now, Jessica and I were both annual pass holders, but about a year and a half ago, before we moved out here, we took a trip inside the park, we shot some footage, and in my opinion, it's the best footage we've shot to date of the house and the motel and of Norman.
We bring you the original Psycho House facade. That's just up the hill from our own version of the Bates Motel. The Bates Motel you're seeing here was built up for the remake version starring Vince Vaughn. But if you look closely at the house, that is the same facade that Sir Alfred Hitchcock used in his 1960... Wow, that's shocking. You know what? It's probably best if we don't linger too long. We still have lots more to see, so it's time to get out of the Bates Motel. Yeah, Ludwig, we might want to go top speed. What is that, 6? All right. Get away from that. We'll take a closer look at the Psycho House structure. They turned it into a shell afterwards with the sequels to Psycho because they spent a little bit more time at the house itself.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. A bad luck's always coming my way.